Welcome to another episode of The Commuter. Well, yesterday was the first day that I released my first episode of The Commuter, and I gotta be honest, it was quite a struggle. I had to go over and over different versions, and I still had to find my style. So while yes, I want to keep everything raw and clean, not hyper polished, but I really also wanted to do something that was also entertaining and I don't know, that would give a little bit of a description of what I want to do. And I know that that will change in time, but I thought if somebody just bumps onto the Commuter and Æternum Mentis, I kind of want to give them a little bit what we're going to be talking about. So I think that this first episode, I want to establish basically like what this entire channel is going to be about, right? It makes a lot more sense. So in my mind, it would work like this, like we're commuting, so you guys are sharing the road with me, and we're just like going on this ride together. It's not really important the ride itself, because in this case, it's actually all about the journey and not about the destination. So we're just going to be sharing the road, the feelings that we have on the road for the day, and how everything flows in our lives, work, creativity, problems related to creativity, and basically everything that pops in our mind. In order for me to do that, though, I definitely need your help, because I don't want this to become a monologue. I want something that is, a participation. More than a participation, it has to be something related to a connection, a deeper connection that we're going to have while, again, like, reaching one point to the other, because there's going to be like quite a few rides, and I believe that just having a monologue probably is not the best way to go, at least for me. So I had a couple of questions when I did a test, and most of them were related to business, how you start your business, but that is going to be like a little bit of a deeper dive of what we are, what we should expect from a business, and that might be like a couple of episodes in. And it was going to require, definitely it's going to require like a lot of patience to go through it and make sure that I don't go on a rant or talking about something that has nothing to do with the topic itself. But on the Commuter, something that I really like, that I like deeply about it, is that like it's how our days are going and where do you think you're going to be, or like how your company is going to evolve, or how you are going to evolve. Because the Commuter itself, or Æternum Mentis, is an evolution of what I am already doing. So I thought that going back to the origins, and I want to talk about, in this one in particular, the pivoting points. I believe that that is pretty much how I came to start the Commuter, or my entire life as a creative director and director of photography. But I thought it's kind of cool. There's kind of these little stories. So bear with me, because I hope that you guys then can find your pivoting moments in the past and then start recognizing when those pivoting points in your life are about to come, or recognize it, so you know that that is a moment that you got to focus on. I started long ago in the creative world, but not from the beginning, and almost not from school. Let's put it this way. I had all sorts of other ideas in my mind, and I was literally lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, what was the path to do it. And I find that this is kind of a recurring thing that happens even with newer generations all the way up today. I see that they're completely lost. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to achieve it. And I gotta be honest, the older generations, or my generations, didn't really help till now, and they're not helping at all. Like, we're fighting all sorts of kind of battles, but we're not actually then helping the people that just want a simple answer. What can I do, and how can I achieve that particular thing? It's great that you tell everybody that you can do everything, but it's not always right that you tell them that they can do everything, then not giving them a guidance. Because then you find yourself in a moment of absolute and complete fear. Now, if you don't believe this, or you can't connect with it because you're too distracted, or you don't, maybe my words are not, let's say, as deep as they should be, I want you to imagine for 1 second that you close your eyes and you're in complete deep space. You don't know where to go and you're fluctuating in every possible direction. That would be extremely frightening. I gotta be honest, they have even a movie about it. I think it's Sandra Bullock that she's floating in the air, just spinning in, not in the air, in the space, and she's spinning like uncontrollably, and she's like lost her sense of direction. She doesn't know where she is. She can't focus. She doesn't know where she's going. That is not much different from what's happening to kids these days, or what happened to me. So every direction was thrown in my way. I gotta be honest, everybody has the best parents in the world. Okay, I got it. And for me, mine are my best parents in the world. Even though they were not rich at all, but my dad never put a limit to what I could become. And he never put a limit of how much it was gonna cost for me to get there. Never. And again, we're poor. Like we're not wealthy. So for him to say, yes, you can go to university, you pick whichever you want, I will figure it out. That was kind of a huge deal for me, and I definitely felt the pressure. And I felt like, okay, now I gotta do something that is important. And that pressure, when you're just spinning around uncontrollably in this pitch black dark of nothing, is definitely not helping. So, not that they didn't help, it didn't help me make the decision. So I want to be very clear here. They were extremely helpful. They gave me guidance, but they gave me guidance in a very gentle way, knowing that, hey, there's everything that you want to do. It's there for you. It's up for grabs. You just have to decide what it is that you do want to grab. And it was tough. It was tough. So I went through all sorts of incredible decisions. I wanted to be like a dentist, not because a dentist was kind of an interesting thing at the time. It was just for the money that they were making. So because we were always, let's say, kind of struggling to make ends meet, the fact is that one of our friends that would always give us a hand was a dentist, and my aunt worked at a dentist. So this is to say that your kids or the people around you, they know the solutions that they can see. Another example is that while I was in this struggling period, my dad was an incredible welder. We're talking about incredible, massive structures, not small, little, tiny, dingy pieces of steel welded together. We're talking about massive, big, honking stadiums, bridges over Prague. It was something impressive. Everything that he would do was impressive. It always was, and he did it to absolute perfection. I believe that his best motto or way of living is that how you do one thing is how you do everything. He probably told me that maybe once, and it stuck with me forever. Like, anything that you do, no matter what, is how you do everything. So if you're clumsy, if you're not organized, if you're not detailed oriented in one thing, you're most likely not detail oriented anywhere. And you're gonna be clumsy about everywhere. And while these are all things that you can fix and improve and become more accurate, more detail oriented, and understand that the world around you has its own spaces and requires its own attention, well, if you don't want to improve it, most likely that is just not gonna go away on its own. So because obviously I saw my dad being a welder, and I knew that that was tough work, but I always loved labor work. I always loved having my hands dirty and fixing something, adjusting something, working on something. That's why I would, fix my motorcycle. I have a tiny little motorcycle that I purchased, and I was always with, wrenches and screwdrivers, just trying to fix it up. It made me feel that there's this kind of a level of accomplishment. Now I know how to fix this part of the motorcycle. I'm good. I'm better than I was yesterday. Now I know how to do this particular task. Okay, that's great. Now I know how to do it. So I always loved that kind of work that you can see the results. So welder obviously was another option that I really wanted to pursue. And I was thinking about it, and obviously then my dad was not really too happy about me being a welder, because he thought that I was ready and set for bigger things in life than being a welder. And again, they made really good money at the time, and he didn't say it in a bad way. He just thought that I could have done something better than, you know, being a welder. And I don't know for what reason, I really liked like welding stuff. Like, I gotta be honest, like a couple of times I got a welder, and most likely there's the probably worst welding ever done in history of time, with no teaching and nothing. But I really loved all those sparks that were going out there, and it just like, yeah, it was incredibly fun. I gotta be super honest. So the other option then came is when I was High School of Art, and I had to decide to go to High School of Art, not knowing what was going to be my path. And then architecture came up, and there was an incredible store that sold all sorts of art kind of supplies. And I love art supplies, like Michael's, DeSeris, like all these stores. I could go in there and spend 10 times the money that I make, and I still would not be satisfied. If I got the entire store shipped at my home every single month, I still would not be satisfied. And I'm quite sure that if I had enough time, I could blow through all those products, glues, colors, paints, spatulas, and I could probably like need even more than whatever is it that they could deliver to my home. So I thought architecture would be great. So I go inside and I see this incredible, it's a tilted table, it's an architecture table that has these massive rulers. So from there on, I just started to continue to think, okay, now if that is it, I have to go High School of Art. Then I can, after High School of Art, there's so many more things that I can do. Inside that store, I found an incredible magazine. It's called AD, Architectural Digest, and I loved it. I bought every single copy to the point that after I had to subscribe to it, and it was coming every day at home, like every month at home. And the second after it would be at home, I'd be literally diving into it to understand the trends, what made a certain home nice. And even though I didn't like it, I said, like, it looks horrible. Why would they even feature it here? But then I had to understand why it was featured. So that was a pivoting point. The fact that I went from dentist to welder, and I was all like, you know, spinning around in this craziness, that was a pivoting point. I'd like you to go back to your pivoting point, which brought you to this one. It could be a good one, it could be a bad one, but the fact is that you'll know the moment when something, even very, very small, just tipped you off course from where you belonged in, let's say, in a parallel universe, and now it made you shift to a complete different universe. Now, if we had control over that, we would be going from always on higher and higher levels. Okay, if it's not parallel universe, it's past lives, whatever it is that you guys believe, but you can go on a higher level. You can be like a better version of yourself. And I believe that that one tipped me to become a different version of myself. I'm not relying on my understanding of what life would have been as a welder, dentist, architect, or whatever it was in between. But I thought that that was a moment where I just went one step on the ladder higher. And so that was it. Go to High School of Art, and for the first 2 years, you have a generic course, and then you have another 2 years where you have to choose whether it's art or architecture. And after that, that was another pivoting point. Because while that brought me 2 steps higher, then I started to listen to other people because I wanted to become an architect. And while I was incredibly good at math with one teacher, she was incredibly amazing. She would make you understand math as it was nothing. It was a piece of cake, child's play. It was easy. Her math was easy, not because math was easy, just because she really knew how to make you understand it. I barely touched like the book, as you said, you don't need the book unless you feel lost. You have to listen in class, and I can guarantee you that everything that you will learn in class, you will keep at home, and it's gonna be for you for life, which I gotta be very honest, it was as right as rain. It was an incredible feeling knowing that I could understand math instead of having to go back home and try to figure it out on my own because whatever was taught in class was not good. So I started to basically, after that, after the 4 years, I have to do like another year if I want to go to university. High school in Italy, at least High School of Art, worked in that way at the time. So I had to figure out what I wanted to do. So I go for the final year, and I start going, obviously, to get my final part of the degree. It was like divided in portions. Please don't ask me how, why they would do that. I have no clue. Other high schools would not work that way. High School of Art worked that way. It was just, yeah, probably not the best way to help kids understand their path in life. I don't know if if Canadian schools are better, or if you guys are listening from US or from other part of the world, if that school is better. Truth is that nobody really gives you a true guidance. We have guidance and counselors and all that stuff, but most of them are too caught in their brain. They don't really help. They don't know the situation. They don't analyze from the point of view of a kid that has a very low understanding of life and what's going to happen in the future. So any advice that they give, it's or impose, or it's misunderstood by the kid. There's never a follow-up. There's not a true deep understanding of the potential of the kid. And that is something, again, that I'm seeing over and over and over today. And I see this is a history that repeats itself, but way worse. So that pivoting point for me helped me basically understand that, yes, I want to go to architecture, but I listened to the wrong people saying that math was going to be so hard that you're never going to pass math. You're never going to pass math. And for some reason, I chickened out. And I chickened out big time, to the point that I decided, hey, you know what? I'm not going to the architecture anymore. That was a pivoting point that brought me down. And it was a point where you cannot get it back. It's just gone. That moment is gone, because I decided that I was not going to go to university in architecture, and anything that would happen from that point over for me was just done. It was just done. It was just gone. I could have never got it back. So in that moment, I'm again spinning. And again, this happens not only to kids, not only for school. It happens when you get fired from a job. It happens when you don't have like enough money to pay your bills. It happens when your girlfriend or boyfriend leaves you, or like there's a huge fight. Every moment when we feel uncomfortable and we're spinning and we don't know what to grasp, probably it's the same thing. And we got to kind of find a moment or a ledge or a handle where we can have a grip on and get back on track. So I started to spin out crazy, to the point that I found myself going to language and literature, which, I gotta be very honest, I have no clue how I ended up there. This was one of the huge mistakes, when you just grab the first decision because you don't have enough guidance and you're not listening to the right people, but you're listening to the wrong people. So I went to language and literature, and obviously that one was definitely not what I wanted to do, and it did not last that long, and losing even more time, taking away from the dream that I wanted to be. Everything obviously has almost a way of then working out. While I was doing this language and literature, I was not interested in going to university, because I really hated the classes, so I preferred to study from home. Massive books, over 7,000 pages of books. I believe close to 8,000 pages of books that I had to read and go through to know every single author, their philosophy of life, the books that they wrote, the poems that they wrote, everything, which I truly hated. But then something happened. There was a friend of mine that was organizing a Halloween party. And for some reason, he wanted to go and print in a printing house, because obviously he wanted to print 500 copies for a very tiny microscopic town that probably didn't even have the 500 kids that could come to his party and pay that small, tiny little fee. But it was a small town down in Italy, and we don't really spend a lot of money to go to a party. And so this entire thing just made me think, this is kind of cool. Now, a little parentheses here. I loved motorcycles. I had a lot of motorcycles. I worked summers to go and grab my a little bit of money that I would just put it back into motorcycles, and then sell that motorcycle, work another summer, and get another motorcycle. And it was just like a kind of revolving thing. But I sold it to buy a computer, because I was fascinated by the fact that I could create something that then would be printed. Because at the time, print, not as much as today, printing a brochure, at least for me, was something huge. Printing a newspaper, poster, or a gigantic billboard. That was fantastic. And I decided that was going to be my career. Screw it with I lost architecture, screw it with everything. I made that decision. The second after my friend got the money from me selling my motorcycle, that was my pivoting point. I still remember him, like Roberto Di Terlizzi. This guy was, and he still is till today, one of my very best friends. I had about 20 best friends in Italy, and Roberto Di Terlizzi was one of them. And he assembled my computer after I sold my motorcycle. And he also gave me the possibility to work with the very first version of Photoshop that I ever knew existed. I didn't even know what Photoshop was. Photoshop 4 or something like that, if not 2. So I'm very aficionados of Adobe. I got the Adobe Certificate Expert. I've been teaching, I've been giving, basically I was giving the courses and I was giving the certificates in Italy for obviously who wanted to become a graphic designer and an Adobe certified expert. So there was like all these things going on in Italy. It was crazy, it was beautiful, it's an incredible creative time, but all that sparked from that pivoting moment. So take a pause and go and check out when was your pivoting moment right there. So I find myself right now, and I'm bringing this this brochure, which by the way, at the time, there was no DVDs, there was no way to transfer stuff. Forget about internet, who had that money? So the only way for me to transfer it was floppy disk, which right now we only recognize because that is a symbol to press save. That's the only reason why we know what a floppy disk is. If it was not for that, nobody would even know what it is. If it was the S symbol, that would be completely gone. So it was like different sizes of these floppy disks, and they would contain 1.44 megabytes. That's it, 1 megabyte and not even and a half. It was crazy. So I had to chop it into a jigsaw puzzle that would fit that size. And I go with a bag of probably 30 of them to a printing house, and I look at the guy, you know, full of pride in my eyes because I took the photo, because I did this chopping thing, and I managed to get this threefold brochure inside 20 or 30 floppy disks, and I hand them over in a bag of a supermarket, and with that big smile on my face, almost if I accomplished something, and I go there and say, I would like 500 pieces of this printed in color, because at the time, obviously, like, you're kidding me? In color? Everybody would print black and white, as in color was very expensive. So I thought, oh my God, now I'm a client, I'm a big guy. I have my computer, I can go there and print now stuff. I'm a big cheese now. It was more funny than actually all the rest, because then the guy looks at me and said, I'm not touching that junk, I don't even care. So that's a computer. I'm gonna give you access to the computer. Knock yourself out and you print it. If it comes out printed, fine, fine. If it prints out like crap, I don't even know, you're still paying me. And I'm just like, now I feel the pressure. I said, no, wait a second. I decided, I did all the work and I'm stuttering right here. I said, like, what if it doesn't come out printed properly? Obviously, I didn't know it, but I didn't know the difference between CMYK. I didn't know ICC profiles. I didn't know printing profiles. I didn't know nothing. I just did it, and now I can probably guarantee that that was in RGB, which, if whoever knows like the printing, probably is going to turn out printed like crap. If not, it's going to print out like a very dull black and white. And so everything starts to go crazy, because the guy looks at me. I said, okay, you just take your time, and then we will send it to print. I'll send it to print with you to make sure that it gets printed correctly, but I'm not taking any time. This guy's a guy that has to make money. He's the owner of this printing house. Note, the printing house was the smallest printing house I've ever seen in my entire life. It was basically a cobweb, a concentration for cobwebs, where the biggest spiders could chop your head off and just go with it. Like the caves of Kirithungal. Like, I think that actually Tolkien went there, and that's how he discovered that the caves of Kirithungal were made of, because that was how the printing house actually looked like. If you're not a Lord of the Rings fan, I apologize. I'm a nerd. So obviously it goes without saying that, yeah, that was kind of a thing that I had to do. There was no way in the world that I was not going to describe that through Lord of the Rings. Anywho, I find myself that then the guy helps me print this thing, and there's many more little stories attached to this story right here, but I just want to close this one saying that he helped me out and everything went printed. The pivotal moment happened right now. This is almost so incredible that yet gives me goosebumps today. A very big European photographer, and he just walks up the stairs. Well, the entire printing house goes quiet. This guy is big, and I have no clue who this guy is. He walks all the way up, and he looks at what I'm doing for this brochure that I can guarantee you was horrible. Pivoting point. Take a note. And the guy looks at it and says, did you do this? And I said, yeah, I did it. And the guy, and I'm ignoring him completely because I'm in complete panic mode thinking that whatever I do right now as a mistake will be printed. So my attention is to not mess up completely the only job, paid job that I got after I sold my motorcycle, which obviously with that money, I would have never got that money back ever in a million years. And so while I'm trying to figure out all the details, while I'm trying to figure out what is happening here and how can I put these pieces together. And by the way, if you have to put in a floppy disk in a computer, first you put it in, it takes a little bit of time and does a weird noise. After that kind of crazy, stupid noise comes out, he has to read and you have to download the file onto the folder, and then you have to open it up in Photoshop and add it to the infinite amount of layers to create the front and the back of the brochure. So I was basically doing a jigsaw puzzle, the jigsaw puzzle that I already did, because I didn't have the money to buy a DVD burner, or, well, DVD, forget about it, a CD burner. That was even impossible for me. Like, that was not even a thing. So while I'm playing with this thing, the guy comes up and he's looking at it, says, did you do it? Did you take a photo? I said, yes, obviously, yes. And then the guy looks at me and says, what barrel did you use? And I'm just like, I hear the word barrel, like, I don't know what it is. I said, what do you mean? What's a barrel? And the guy, like, I don't even know if he was laughing at me. I was so in panic because I couldn't take my eyes off the screen that I just like looked at him very briefly. And there's this incredibly beautiful man with these icy eyes. Like, this guy has the eyes that are made like of ice. And he has, if you guys never like encountered somebody that has such charisma that you can basically, like, the entire world seems like goes in slow motion with that, like every time it moves. Like, he was there. I can say I have a man crush on this guy because like he's that good looking. And he's just literally there and says, what barrel did you use? I said, what's a barrel? He said, do you know what camera you're using? I said, I don't know what camera I'm using. He said, I don't know. The camera was an overpriced camera, entry-level camera, that my uncle sold me. It was definitely overpriced. I didn't have the money to pay for it. When he sold it, we were at a Sunday when they came to eat at our place. It was he is my dad's brother. And he had the camera there, and I said, yeah, sure, I'll buy it from you, because he was saying, like, I'm gonna sell it and something. It was, in all fairness, it was a piece of junk. Like, literally the worst camera that you can probably find. And I think I still have it. So I'm gonna ask my parents if they can take a photo and send it to me so I can basically put it inside this vlog and you guys can see what I was working with. So he basically like gives me this camera, and I pay for the camera. I took the photo with it. So I said, it's a Pinnacle pen. I didn't even remember the name, Pentax. And the guy laughs, you know, like a little smile and laugh. And he just turns, seeing that he's not getting the attention that he should be getting, because this guy is big. He's a Patrick de Marchelier. He's like a honking big photographer. And I'm there ignoring him, to the point that basically he's looking at me and he's about to go away, and I hear the steps, and then all of a sudden I hear him stepping back, because I was on a higher ledge made of metal, so everything was happening on there. I would feel the vibration of it. I don't think it was up to code, and I would feel everything vibrating and wherever everybody was. And he comes back and says, do you want to learn photography? Pivoting moment. Just right there. my entire life changed. Everything in my life changed. This guy, basically, one of the biggest photographers that we have that shoots models and brands like Valentino. We're talking about Armani, not normal guys. Not the dealer, not the distributor. We're talking about the brand. We're talking about the designer. And at the time, it was incredible. So the guy says, do you want to learn photography? I said, yeah, sure. I said, okay, come to my studio and we'll meet there. That was a pivoting moment. Now, that pivoting moment, I could have done two things. One, go, two, not go. There's like no other things that could have happened. And everything in the world was keeping me away from reaching that location. I didn't have a car to reach. I didn't have no way to reach that location. I had to go with public transportation, which in Italy, we got to be very honest, at the time, I don't know now, but at the time was probably the worst thing that you could do. It was probably like, I would have preferred shoving bamboo like spikes under my fingernails than go inside anything that was a bus to bring me wherever I had to go, but I did it. Nonetheless, I showed up in time. And it was a struggle because I left probably like 5 hours earlier and not a lot of money. And the place where there was no coffee, no nothing, no food, no nothing. You just had to be there and that was about it. So I go there in this industrial area and I walk in. Everything is made in concrete, just live, polished, smooth concrete. It was so minimalist that it was beautiful. Anything in there, even a petal of a rose, would have been way too much and would have ruined everything. The minimalist look, the minimalist design was absolutely flawless. I loved it. So I look at this huge round concrete table and there's these big couches and I don't know what to do because they told me wait, and I was just waiting there. And then I look on the table, there's a dozen copies of the best magazines in the world. One of them was Numero, which I love. I love Vogue, the old Vogue, not what it is today, unfortunately, the old GQ. And there was this Numero, a big yearly edition, huge, was massive. I grab it, I open it, and I look at the cover and the photos, and then I just, for 1 second, I go back, and it's him. This is the guy. This is the person that I'm going to meet. His name was there. His photo was there. And it was incredible. I said, oh my God, what the heck is happening here? That cover must have costed at the time so much money. And him to be there and to be the photographer of the cover and of the entire editorial of that month, I literally didn't know what to do. I said, I gotta bolt out of here now because I don't know nothing about photography. And while I'm actually about to make the decision, there's something in the air that doesn't make me make that decision. Or probably it's the guy from up the stairs that's saying, hey, is that you, Sergio? Come up. So I'm coming up and I meet him in person. Piercing blue eyes. He shakes my hand firmly. And there is a chaos that I cannot even tell you. And like around him, there's calmness. All around, there's everything is happening simultaneously. There's models going back and forth, designers. I'm talking about probably 14 models, probably about God knows how many designers. And there's perfume bottles, there's like dresses, there's stilettos, there's like a makeup artist, hairstylists, people that are screaming left and right. Is it red? Set number 5, we're up. And I'm just like, what is going on? At a certain point, there's a table. The most beautiful table I have ever seen in my life. No, there was not food. There was every single lens that I possibly even knew existed and that I desired, and I had no clue how to use them or what their numbers were on it. They just looked very expensive and very heavy, and they were just fantastic. And all of a sudden, there's a guy who says, okay, that is a set, prepare for portrait. And I'm just like, what do you mean? Just get the lights and get the cameras and get everything prepared for portraits. And I'm just like, what's happening? I didn't know it. I had to prepare everything for him to come, evaluate. So I had to do the grunt work to prepare everything, the lights, the position, the power of the lights, and everything that was needed. So when he would come there and take the photo, he just had to adjust the things to make it art, while the donkey work had to be done by me. And I was happy about it. If I knew what I was doing, there was so many bodies of cameras. So off the top of my head, I knew that there was a couple of Leafs. I know that there were Canons. I definitely know that there were Nikons, and for sure, a set of Hasselblads that I never thought I would see in my entire life. I was so scared that I didn't even touch the Hasselblads, and God forbid I would even think about attaching the lens to the Hasselblad. I didn't even know how to do it, first thing. And second, I didn't know what the lens was about. I didn't know if it was a telephoto, wide angle. I didn't know nothing. So I was just there looking in complete panic. I think that the guys were laughing at me, because then the same guy comes back to me after about 20 minutes of me looking back and forth and not knowing what to do. I said, come on, let's do it together. And he was extremely helpful. So he started to connect everything. The chaos in that room and the energy in that room was something so incredibly creative, the messy process of creativity, that I cannot even tell you how beautiful it was. I felt such in awe of that moment, knowing that I contribute nothing. I probably held back the entire process, but the entire thing that I was in that moment, I felt blessed. Like there was something. And that was the moment that I decided I have to learn how to take photos. Extremely expensive, don't care. There's only film, digital didn't exist, so you had to develop everything, don't care. I have to go and buy film, I don't care. Don't know how to load a camera on film, do not care. It's going to happen. So now I had the computer, I just had to get the camera. And from that moment on, my entire life changed. And it stayed on that track of photography, then became cinematography. Then from very poor designer, not a graphic designer, I couldn't own that title at the moment. Then I started to slowly become extremely fast and extremely good at it, to the point that newspapers called me. And when I got a job in a newspaper, they knew that I could develop about 30 to 50 and sometimes 60 ads a day to just shove out at speed of light on all the newspapers that had a hard deadline at 5:30. The newspaper had to go to print for the next day. There was no getting late. And if there was some problems, they know that they can call Sergio wherever from all Italy. I was in the best place of my life. I had to create art like popcorn popping inside like a can. I was like the fastest guy. I was the go-to guy, and I was doing massive things. The power and the energy that I felt every morning going to work, I didn't even care that I never took a vacation. I didn't even care that the paycheck was not all that great. I didn't even care about anything. The only thing I cared about is that I had the power to do things that then would be printed. And that shifting and that pivoting moment and everything that happened in that time was because that pivoting moment. Because I sold my motorcycle to get the computer, because I decided to take on a very poor job and do a very poor job of a threefold brochure for a Halloween party, to go to a printing house that was basically infested with spiders. And I didn't have anything to protect me from the elves, by the way. And everything that happened there in that moment was just incredible. And that is what brought me to stick with it, because I just can't let it go. So I want to wrap up this moment of the commuter. There's no sound right now because I reached here longer than, well, way before basically this entire speech or episode should have ended. But the entire point is that I couldn't finish it in the time that the commute was there. I needed more time, and I needed to wrap this up. So I want you guys to find that pivoting moment. Try to find them when they happened. They're so subtle that almost they seem invisible to the eyes of many. But once you start to identify them, maybe, just maybe, you'll have a chance to identify them when they come in the future. So great opportunities. Don't slip your fingers, and maybe those great opportunities will be something that will bring you to your next level. I think I'm going to wrap this one up here because I still continue to have goosebumps every time I think about that story, and it's just something that I'm telling you guys, it was just amazing. I loved every single moment of that transformation. And I hope this inspired you guys a little bit. And this is Æternum Mentis. This is the Commuter. Thank you so much for being on the ride with me. And I'm Sergio. Welcome to my life.